Have you ever felt like you were just stuck regardless to how much effort you put into it, how much time passes, almost as if the year changes, but you keep living the same year over and over again? If you felt stuck and even still feel like you're stuck regardless to how much effort you put into, then you are probably ready to reinvent yourself. Now, in order for you to reinvent yourself, there are a few things that need to take place, and it has nothing to do with goals because people set goals all the time. And sometimes people set New Year's resolutions all the time, and people are still setting goals and New Year's resolutions that are the exact same goals and New Year's resolutions that they had like 10 years ago. And there's a reason why they still have not accomplished what they want to accomplish. And so in this video, I want to show you 4 specific things on how you can reinvent yourself, transform your situation, and truly live your best life. Now, the one thing that's really important to understand is that nothing changes until you do. Here's what I mean by that. Meaning that if you don't become somebody different, you're going to continue to experience the same things over and over again. And so a part of reinventing yourself is becoming intentional about changing your identity. Now, when it comes to your identity, I'm not saying try to act like something that you're not. I'm saying that there's an aspect of you that is a champion, like you are a leader, you are phenomenal, and all of the things that you want are on the other side of becoming the best version of who you already are. And so when I'm talking about reinventing yourself, I'm talking about reinventing yourself to truly become the best version of you that you already are. Because so often, we resist becoming something different because we don't want to be an imposter. And I totally understand that. However, there are certain aspects of us where we just need to turn the volume of our personality up. Or we need to turn the volume of our thinking up so we can think different. And when we do those things, a different version, the absolute best version of us will show up. And when you change your identity, your beliefs are going to change. Because there's a famous saying that says, beliefs follow behaviors. And it's like a lot of times we do things and we don't realize that we're doing the things that we're doing because of the beliefs that we have. And it's like until we change the beliefs, the behaviors will never change at all. And you can have all of the goals, you can have all of the New Year's resolutions, but some kind of way, people might stick to it for 2 days, maybe even 2 weeks, but it's only a matter of time before they default back to what their default identity is. And so when it comes to reinventing yourself, it's very important to be intentional about changing your identity, because when you change your identity, that's when your behaviors are going to change. Like that's when you are going to seek out something different that you probably can't even see right now, because a lot of times we don't see things or the world as they are. We see the world and things as we are. And until we become somebody different, the way and how we look at things is going to stay the exact same. Now, a very critical step in truly reinventing yourself is to decide and define what your future self will even look like. Now, if you understand what it means to decide, decide means to cut off all other options, all other possibilities. And when you truly decide and define what your future self looks like, it cuts off every other possible opportunity. And when you do this, what happens is your mind goes and looks for evidence to prove that you are what you already decided to be. And what happens is things just show up. And when you see things as you see yourself to be in the future, sometimes the future starts to come into your present and things start to act as if, and it happens a lot faster. And it's like you want to define first, because when you define, that gives you clarity. But when you decide, that means you brought like there is no other option. Like there is a stake in the sand and this is what's happening regardless to what happens for this to actually come about. When people do like transformations and when they shift their identity and when they reinvent themselves, there are certain things that have to change. But one thing that's critical in this process is to just decide one thing. Like one thing that you're going to change and start doing that's incongruent with this new shift and this new identity of who you really are when it comes to your future self. Because when you start to do things that is in alignment with this new improved version of yourself, like other things will follow suit. And it's so important for you to just start with one, because when you start with one and you master that, now you can layer something else on. And I'll tell you what else happens when you decide on this one thing and you start to consistently change that one thing and you're consistent with that thing, sometimes other things just fall into place by default. So even though you're only focused on one thing, sometimes other things happen just by default and you might not even realize that it's happening, but it's all happening for your good. And the more you do this, the more that this becomes congruent with your identity. And it's like when it becomes congruent with your identity, it's going to feel natural and everything else around you is going to shift to this new habit. Because here's the reality. We don't determine our futures. We determine our habits, and our habits determine our futures. And so when you stay congruent with this in terms of your identity and you just pick out this one thing, that is going to cause you to reinvent in a way that will probably accelerate the process, but it's also going to stick, because sometimes people try to change certain things and they don't change for permanent. They only change for temporary because of certain things that are not in place. And sometimes people have like temporary changes, but they don't have a permanent transformation. And when you truly make a permanent transformation, you can't even go back to what was because it no longer exists. Now, on the flip side, one other thing that you want to do is decide one thing that you're going to stop doing as a result of this identity. Because it's one thing to start doing, but it's also some things to stop doing as well. Because there are certain things that sometimes people do and they don't realize that the very thing that you're doing is costing you the future that you say you want. And so when you start doing one thing, it's also critical to understand what are you going to stop. Because sometimes you can do all of the right things, but a little bit of doing the wrong thing could also cause you to jeopardize everything. So figure out like one thing that you're going to stop that's congruent with this new identity. But when you decide on this one thing, make it something that you would not compromise on. So you want to be very strategic in just understanding that you don't have to change everything at once. Just start with one. But when you decide on what that one is, after you do it for a period of time, it's going to cause you to feel good. And it's going to cause you to naturally feel like you deserve to be in this new reinvention and this new version of yourself. Now, something that's really critical to truly change your your future self and to reinvent yourself is to change your external and your internal language. Sometimes we don't realize that the things that we say, it dictates how we feel, and how we feel dictates our behavior, and our behavior dictates how we feel, and how we feel dictates what we say. And so it becomes this loop. And so it's very critical to change your internal, but also your external behavior. Like even when you're talking to other people, you want to be very intentional about not saying anything that's disempowering. So for instance, when it comes to the price of something, you never want to say something is too expensive, because what that communicates to your subconscious mind is that this is something that you can't afford. Now, a more accurate thing to say is that this is overpriced. Because saying something is overpriced doesn't mean you can't afford it. It just means that you don't agree with the price that they're asking for, that you're unwilling to pay. So when it comes to your language, internal and external language is very, very critical to reinvent yourself. When you think about people that you hang around normally on a regular basis, sometimes they'll notice a change within you just by how you speak. And how you speak will train them on how to treat you. And when you train people how to treat you, then now they become a support system to help you get to where you really want to be and help you accomplish what you really want to accomplish. Now, one thing that's really, really powerful, and it really takes you changing this, even if you change your language and other things, you won't really reinvent yourself and you won't experience a permanent transformation if you don't do this one thing. And what I'm speaking of is changing your environment. Like your environment is really, really critical, and it has so much influence on your future success and your future failure. And it's like when you change your environment and when you set yourself up for success, it causes reinventing yourself to just go a lot more smoother, a lot more natural, and it also stays permanent. Because when you think about an environment, if you create an environment for growth, even if you bring something in there that doesn't want to grow, by default, because of the environment, it's going to grow just because this is what the environment produces. And on the flip side, if you have an environment where like Like nothing is supportive of any kind of growth whatsoever. It doesn't matter what you bring in that environment. It's not going to thrive. It's not going to grow. And more than likely, it's going to die because of that of the environment that it's in. And so you might be thinking, well, what kind of environments are you talking about? Well, it can be something as simple as the desk that you work at, like having a clean desk, or waking up every morning, having a clean room. Like that's an environment, and it's like the first things that you see in the morning, you want it to be something that's an environment that's conducive to your success. Because when you wake up and your subconscious mind sees failure everywhere, that's what it's going to seek. That's what it's going to be congruent with. But when you see success everywhere, that's also what it's going to seek. Because it's like that environment is now conducive to the success that you say you desire. And so environment is really critical, because even your environment might even be online, like things that you listen to. Your environment could even be like your refrigerator, things that you eat. So environment is not just conducive to just one setting, but there's many environments. But you want to set up all of your environments to be conducive to your success. And I'm not saying that if you don't set up all, you won't be successful. What I'm saying is if you set up all, the likelihood of your success being like a permanent transformation is more likely to happen. And when you change your environments, the more it becomes a habit, the more you feel great about yourself, and the more that it just becomes something that's second nature to you. And it's something that you do. And what you start to do, you start to feel more comfortable in the success environment than maybe the current environment if it's not set up for success. And it puts you in the mindset of, I am starting to become more comfortable, and I'm starting to demand and even expect more success from myself than what I had before, because everything has yielded to a successful environment. So my language changed, my environment changed, my identity changed. And so when all of those things are in alignment, failure becomes something that's not even conceivable. Like we can't even relate to that anymore, because we become somebody different because we reinvented ourselves. Now, I want to know from you, what is one thing that you are going to put in place on your journey to truly make 2025 the absolute best year for yourself by reinventing just one thing? So let me know in the comments what's one thing that you're going to do in this journey. And here's the thing, if you are new to this channel, I want to ask you to consider subscribing. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.